All right, it's 11 o'clock and we're going to go ahead and get started. We tend to have folks coming right in as we're getting started, so we'll let that happen while we're going through our commercial messages. Uh, so, uh, so welcome to you all. My name is Alan Reed. I'm the Executive Director of the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network, and we welcome you to the F&B-45. This is our every other Tuesday webinar where we dig into some of the hot topics that are happening in the food and beverage industry. Uh, we thank you for being a part of our ongoing virtual events. Last year we put on 40 in-person events. And while we miss having cocktails and appetizers and breakfasts with all of you, we're doing the best we can to keep the community connected, pulled together through these virtual events on an ongoing basis. We encourage you to participate, stay in touch, stay connected, and especially to all the things that are happening in industry. The Chicagoland Food and Beverage Industry, or excuse me, the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network, for those of you who may be less familiar with it, we're a mission-driven industry organization. We're 3 years old and we bring together the incredible food and beverage industry of the greater Chicagoland area. We leverage their incredible power to do great things, specifically grow the industry, grow the local economy, create jobs. And while those are important every day, they're especially important as we continue to face this global pandemic and and the aftermath. We've also recently launched a new nonprofit called Bigger Table. Bigger Table brings together that same industry to do amazing things that give back to our communities and address, big issues like food insecurity, unemployment, inclusive economic development, and we have a couple of fantastic projects that are happening now. One specifically, we'll be delivering 250,000 servings of healthy food to Chicagoland area food banks in the next couple of weeks, all based on donations from, I'll say, big and small companies coming together and really dedicated to addressing food insecurity in a completely different way. So more to come on that. And with that, I will turn it over to our host and the chairman of the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network, Joel Warady, to talk through our fantastic topic today on supply chain. Joel.
We're not talking supply chain.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. You know what? I saw the, I let myself be confused. We have a supply chain event coming up on Thursday that I was supposed to plug, and my mind is already on that. We are talking innovation this morning.
Right. But
supply chain on Thursday, so don't miss that one either.
Right. But I think what would be fun, Alan, is if we did talk supply chain today with our panelists who have absolutely no preparation, and wouldn't that be a fun event? But we won't do that. So thanks for the intro. And as Alan mentioned, my name is Joel Warady, and currently serving as chairman of the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network this year. Today we have with us Andria Long and Jessica Watson. So I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves, but I will start with Andria, who has this great background with a lot of Chicago-based companies, including Kellogg's and Sara Lee and Johnsonville Sausage and Alberto Culver. And I know I think I missed Kimberly Clark. Did I miss Kimberly Clark? And then Jessica Watson, who, if my notes are correct, has spent 15 plus years at Kellogg's. So Andria, let's start with you. Maybe you can just share a little bit about your background and what you're doing today.
Sure. I came up through brands. So I'm a brand marketer by trade. I went into innovation as a brand manager and never went back. And I actually went into innovation. My first innovation job was at Kellogg, Keebler, and on Cheez-It, which you see on the back wall. I've worked for 7 different consumer products packaged goods companies, 5 of which are in Chicago and 5 of which are food and beverage. I think you covered them all except M&M Mars, and then Johnsonville was the last one. So after running innovation at Sara Lee as well as Johnsonville, in the last year or so, I decided to go on the outside, go rogue outside of a big corporate CPG and help companies grow their CPG brands through innovation. So basically what I was doing inside corporate, pivoting out, and also giving me the ability to do board work and helping companies grow.
Great. And I should mention that Andria is on the board of Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network this year as well. So thanks, Andria. And Jessica, am I correct in saying that since you graduated from Western Michigan University, a great program for people who want to be in the food industry, you have spent your entire career at Kellogg's? Is that true?
That's correct. So I actually started while I was in college, and I have held multiple different roles through the company and lived across the country. So I started out in nutrition marketing. I then went into sales. I spent the majority of my career actually on the retail side of the business. So I worked in sales, like I said, shopper marketing, both at kind of mass grocers as well as smaller chain grocers. And then I made the transition into our away from home business, which is where I'm at now. And I've been here for the past 5 years. Currently today, I manage our snacking portfolios, which include brands like Cheez-It that we're going to talk about today, but also great brands like Pop-Tarts, Rice Krispie Treats, and Pringles. So it's been a wonderful career, and I love working on these fun brands.
Well, that's great. And welcome. And yes, we are going to talk about Cheez-Its, but I am going to ask you some inside information about the new Pop-Tarts chocolate churro that just came out, which sounds...
Have you had it? It's delicious.
I have not had it. No. And I should say before we get into the innovation discussion, you know, I think we've all participated in looking behind the people that we're talking to via Zoom, etc. And I think Jessica's done a great job to shame us all with her racing badges in the background. So we know.
Those are my husband's, they're not mine.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Well, so we do want to talk about innovation today, and you know it's interesting that both you, Jessica, and you, Andria, have this Cheez-It background, and for those people who know me, they know that I come from the natural products industry primarily, at least in my last 20 years, and Cheez-Its would not be considered necessarily a natural product. So I guess, you know, when we start and we talk about innovation, I think the first question is, what is true innovation? Is it just a line extension? And is that what larger companies are calling innovation? Or is innovation truly something unique and different that will change people's lives? So I'm going to start with you, Jessica, and ask, you know, what do you see as true innovation?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I think when I think about innovation, it's less about, certainly in the traditional sense, it's a new product. And that can certainly be in the shape of a new format a brand takes on, or a simple flavor extension. However, I also think a great way to think about innovation is around the commercial aspect of it. So how do we really bring the brand to life and kind of drive either some excellent partnerships? You know, Cheez-It is right now, we have some great partnerships with football, really engaging with consumers that are going to enjoy a snack. And so I think that's a great moment to make a brand connection at a time when a consumer is looking for a solution. So I think innovation, like I said, is both about the product and a potential way to engage, either through an event, through a partnership, like gaming. So I think there's a few ways in that we can now consider what innovation is in today's economy.
Okay. And Andria, you're working with a lot of CPGs as an outside consultant. Do you agree with that? I mean, is that how you are presenting innovation to the companies, or are you trying to get your clients to push the envelope a little bit more?
So I guess the way I define innovation is something that solves a consumer need in a new or different way. And I think that the ad that I've made onto that lately is innovation's gotten a lot harder to do, a lot more competitive as you see the smaller companies coming in, is that I think it also needs to have a point of difference that consumers see and are willing to pay for. And then when you asked about the different types of innovation, I think line extensions are innovation. We usually call it renovation because they're closer in, but I think you need both. You constantly need to be evolving your brand to evolve with consumer needs, right? You see things moving towards clean label, and that would be a renovation. But I think also to truly grow beyond that 3 to 5%, you've got to have bigger platform innovation, right? That gives you multiple generations of innovation and the bigger volume. So to me, you've got to have both. My expertise is more on the bigger platform and coming up with a bigger innovation, but you definitely need both of those to grow.
So I want to stay on this idea of true innovation, bigger platform, new ideas, and we'll stay on Kellogg's. So I have a great advantage of being older, and I remember when Pop-Tarts were invented. It wasn't in 1920. Trust me. Later.
It was not. Yeah.
Yeah, but Pop-Tarts to me is innovative. I mean, if you think about it, I know we take Pop-Tarts for granted, but I apologize to both the current and former Kellogg's people because, I'm from the natural industry, but you've got this product that has dough on both sides, can go into a toaster and not burn, and then the inside, which is supposed to be real fruit flavor that has a shelf life of God knows how long. It doesn't leak out. I mean, this to me is a really innovative product. So the question that I have, and I'll start with you, Andria, it seems to me that certainly the legacy companies have kind of stopped innovating in that manner. That they are innovating in new flavors and new packaging, but the idea of really creating a product that has never existed before, I don't see it happening as often as I used to. So Andrea, starting with you, is that a true statement? And what are you seeing with your clients?
Yeah, I think, the big new to the world things, you think of the Swiffer, you think of Pop-Tarts as a great example. Those are few and far between and harder to get to, but you still are seeing innovation that's quite sizable. Like they just launched Tart Minis, which was one of the pace setters, right? So a new form, more snackable, fitting with consumer habits, right? So they can eat that easier on the go. And those you actually don't even need a toaster or an appliance, right? So I think there still is a lot of innovation, but those really what I'd call new to the world things we aren't seeing as much. But I mean, we still are seeing some things with, like whether it's new technology, right? And this is an older one, but Steam Fresh, which brought a lot of news to the frozen aisle, right? And took that to a higher level of, feeling more fresh, prepared than frozen foods were before. So I think we're still seeing a lot, but yeah, not that new to the world like you were talking about, Joel.
And Jessica, do you when you're working on Cheez-It and other brands, do you try and bring new to the world ideas, or is the mandate from the company to be a bit more conservative? And I know it's hard to answer that because you work for the company, but I mean, what do you see as the trend, whether it's within Kellogg's or outside Kellogg's?
Yeah, so I think that when you have legacy brands, right, like a Pop-Tarts, like a Cheez-It, you're going to want to do a mix of things because you're never going to want to lose your base. So I think it's really important to focus on those things like Cheez-It, for example. Things that people love about Cheez-It is that it's a baked, made with 100% real cheese, right? But it doesn't always mean that I need to stay in the cracker aisle. We have a history of really trying to be disruptive and break out of that cracker aisle. We do that in Away From Home with some of the initiatives that we use this brand to partner with some of our restaurant partners. Certainly when we think about some of our most recent launches like Snapped, that was a really kind of big bet for us, because while it's definitely centered in being a Cheez-It and being a Cheez-It cracker, it does act and behave like a chip. And so when we kind of thought about this, we really thought about how could we continue to reach our consumer base, but give them at a new time of day, a new occasion. And so really that's when we kind of thought about, how do we reach more consumers at different part of the days? Or how do we help our consumer base make our product more valuable in usage and kind of be with them in different parts of that day? And so really that's what an innovation like Snapped did for us, is that it was valuable for our consumer because it was a new usage occasion. And then it led to incrementality in sales for our retail partners.
All right, so I want to pivot and talk a little bit about what I love about brand managers and is that how many times you can mention Cheez-It, which is great, because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and that's great. And look at Andria's got Cheez-It behind her head.
Yes.
And yeah. So but one of the things that I heard when CNBC was doing some interviews with legacy companies, including Mark Klaus from Campbell's and Dirk Van de Put from Mondelez, and I forget, it's terrible, the new CEO of Kraft. He's been there a year, so he's not new anymore. But one of the things that I was amused by is, once COVID happened and we were all forced to stay at home, we saw that the legacy brands, the sales skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. And it's natural. People were looking for comfort, are looking for comfort foods, and they went back to their morning cereals. They're not able to drive to McDonald's for breakfast or Starbucks for breakfast. So, cereals and Pop-Tarts and Campbell's soup and Kraft macaroni and cheese, all the things that we're used to were consumed. But what I thought was interesting and somewhat amusing is all the CEOs said, I think this is a good indication that legacy brands will continue to play a really important role, and the upstart brands aren't as disruptive as one might think. Now, what I thought was amusing was we were literally in the middle of stay at home, where we were being forced to stay at home. We were in a 3-month period. And I think we all know as marketers, you never want to say, well, the market has changed because here's what's happened in the last 90 days. So with that in mind, it seems to me that companies have said, we want to cut back on our SKU varieties. We want to reduce the proliferation of SKUs. And specifically with one company, the CEO said, innovation is going to still be a part of what we do, but it's not going to be the primary thing what we do. Mm. That concerns me, because we're basing this on 90 days. So Andria, starting with you, I mean, don't you feel that for companies, especially legacy brands, to really continue to play such an important role, that we are going to have to innovate? And then the second part of that question is, how do we accelerate innovation during this period where we're having supply chain issues?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's critical to continue to innovate, and you really have to understand the situation in, right? It's a period of uncertainty, a period of recession. People are going back to their tried and true trusted brands, and that's not going to last forever if you don't evolve with consumers' evolving needs, right? And come up with new things. You also have a situation too where retailers aren't doing a lot of resets right now, right? So you can still get innovation on shelf, but either take it for yourself or somebody else. There's always plenty of low performing SKUs out there, right? We should also be doing SKU rationalization, but there are plenty of low performers to get out there and offer something more innovative and new. I don't see how you possibly grow as a company without doing some sort of innovation and evolving with consumer needs, especially as you look at millennials and Gen Z and what their needs are and what they're looking for. I think too is post COVID, we got to think about how consumers are really thinking more about safety, right? So how we package our products and how they're handled, natural, if it gives the perception of like less touched, cleaner label, understandable. All those are things that we need to keep in mind as we're innovating as consumer needs evolve.
Thanks, Andrea. So, Jessica, rather than ask the same question, I'm going to ask at Kellogg's, if today we end this interview and you get a call and you have now been made, we'll say president. We'll say Steve is still CEO, but you are now president. Would you double down on innovation today, or would you continue to focus on bolstering your current brands that you have in house, and you can't say both?
Can't say both.
Yikes. Well, I mean, I do feel like it does come down to balance. I think that you have to place bets. I think that's really important. And I think that you need to have some risk in your business. At the same time, you can't ignore your core. And that's where I feel like as consumers post-COVID are looking, they're going, gosh, I love Cheez-It, but maybe I'm no longer interested in this flavor profile. And I think that's where just like core business management, we're constantly looking to evolve the portfolio to be in its most relevant form. That being said, I think to get to that, we are going to really need to be able to innovate to ensure that now that consumers are back in our portfolio, if they've been a lapsed user, that we're staying on top of those trends to ensure that portfolio keeps them satisfied and they'll continue to be a user ongoing. So I do feel like it's a both, and I don't think you can have one without another when you're talking about big legacy brands.
All right. I want to remind everyone to submit your questions. We will take questions at the end, and we'll ask both Jessica and Andria those questions. So if you recall, Alan said you can just send them through the Zoom technology. All right. So Jessica, one of the things that I promised you is that there wouldn't be any gotcha questions, but I seldom tell the truth. So let me ask you this. So you've been working on Cheez-Its. How long have you been working on Cheez-It?
About 18 months.
Okay. And would you agree that today chains like Whole Foods and maybe Sprouts and that they wouldn't look at Cheez-It as a quote healthy natural brand?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about innovation, and everyone knows Cheez-It. Everyone knows the brand, or I would imagine you have a plus 95% brand awareness. How did Cheez-It miss the opportunity for the baked cheese snacks that we see out there, whether it's Moon Cheese or other brands that that fit the Whole30 and the paleo and the keto diet programs? How did Cheez-It not take advantage of that? And then second question to that is, does it indicate that within the larger legacy companies, we still are seeing issues with how we look for that next big idea? So I'll start with you, Jessica.
So great question. I'll answer it a few different ways. One is that we're always interested in what the Cheez-It consumer is doing, right? So we're always going, where's that focus going? How are consumers snacking? What are they reaching for? So we're always going to be aware of that. Two is that I would say that while health looks different to so many folks and how we define it, I don't necessarily know that even when consumers are asked, like, what's your idea of health? It's usually my own personalized idea of that. And so I think with a brand like a Cheez-It, I think that first of all, we have some options for folks. So we have whole grain Cheez-It. We have reduced fat Cheez-It. So we do have some haloed health claims, if you will. And I think future forward, things like keto and kind of this next wave, there are definitely implications to how might a Cheez-It play in that space. For sure. I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that we could potentially see, definitely, whether it's from Cheez-It or some of our other brands that are kind of coming forward, because we want to make sure that as those the consumer landscape evolves, we're with them. So whether it's a Cheez-It or something else, I would definitely say that we have a brand that's likely going to be there for that consumer.
Okay, great. So Andrea, along those same lines, are you recommending to your clients, especially your large legacy companies, to create skunk works within the company so that they're able to operate faster and get newer and innovative products to market? Or do you think that the current structure within innovation can come up with these more niche, innovative type categories?
I definitely think, given that we've seen the onslaught and like from small companies and the just sheer amount of they're over 50% of the number of innovation and almost over 50% of the dollar of innovation coming out. It's a lot more competitive with the barriers to entry being lowered with social media, et cetera. So I think big companies, legacy companies, have to continue to figure out how to simplify their processes, skip steps, do things a lot faster, a lot more nimble. So I constantly encourage them to look at areas where they can do stuff quicker, faster. Some of the times you need to lean in a little bit, right? Like, you're not going to have all the data or all the information, but you need to use some business judgment and take some risk. You can't always test the hell out of it, right? And also iterate and sort of learn and grow as you go, right? So whether it's getting in market with a test retailer partner to get there faster versus some in-home consumer testing, but absolutely they've got to lean in, skip some steps, and go a lot faster if they want to keep up with the nimbleness of small companies, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So just, talking about going faster, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and at the end of my active day-to-day management, I had sold my company to Mondelez and stayed on with Mondelez, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So starting with you, Jessica. Is Stage-Gate just something that slows innovation down, or do you think the concept of Stage-Gate should still be utilized today? And if so, are there ways to speed up the process? Because to me, Stage-Gate means we're easily 24 to 36 months before a product ever gets to market.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a fluid conversation that we have all the time. I think that we're really trying to figure out what's the right kind of mix of that, because we certainly know that there's a value to that process. However, to your point, sometimes it can seem a bit heavy and kind of slow things down. And so I think that where our leaders are kind of pushing us is to go, what really does need to be true? And how do we just go and kind of push forward and through that? And so I think that right now, our leaders are really looking to us to go, how do we have these paths forward so we have more agile and nimble innovation processes to allow us to do exactly that and to stay competitive with those smaller, more nimble organizations that are getting out to market. So I think there is a desire right now where we're at to really bring some of that forward. And I am seeing both of those work streams ongoing right now in our company. We are evaluating different paths forward, and it's exciting to kind of see that change, because I agree, stage gating of past is really dragged to market. So we are really starting to go what needs to be true and progressing forward.
So Andria, with your clients, specifically in the last few years, what's the fastest you were able to bring an innovation to market? And then I have a follow-up question to you.
6 months. And that's within the CPG world.
And can you share the category?
Yeah, this was actually back at Johnsonville, and it was naturals, getting into fresh natural product, brats, Italian sausage, and breakfast.
All right. So along those lines, part of, I think, we talk about agility and we talk about fast process, but part of what I think holds us back, especially in the larger legacy companies, is how we measure success. So we talk about risk, and are we willing to lower our success bar? So Andria, with the clients that you're working with, what do they consider a successful product?
A couple things. I mean, it is absolutely about lowering your risk or enhancing your increases of success in market. Size often depends on the size of the business, but it can be anywhere from 5 million all the way up to, for bigger company, $20 million launch. I think the big thing about success is something that's going to sustain in market. Otherwise, you're just churning, right? So if you're going to launch something that isn't based on a consumer need or interest or have a point of difference, it's not going to last in market. It may not even make it a year. So getting something that can stay on shelf for 2-3+ years as in sustaining innovation is awesome, because then you're not churning and reusing those resources over and over just to do a SKU replacement. So something that sustains in market has been really critical. And then size, calibrate to size of company, size of business.
And Jessica, you're nodding. You agree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So I want to talk about first to market and Me Too products and our Me Too products innovative. And I'm going to use an example, and Jessica, you can beat me up later because I'm going to use a Kellogg's example. But and it's not one of your brands, I don't think. But in the natural space, we've seen Kodiak Cakes do just a great job on things like waffles and pancakes, and I think they've just come out with granola bars. And there's way too many bars in the category, but that's another discussion. But
that's another discussion.
That's right. But then, and I know I'm going to get this wrong. Kellogg's just came out with a similar all natural frozen waffle, and is it under the Eggo brand, or is it under Kashi, or is it under a completely new brand? I don't know.
I think it is a new brand. The name escapes me because I don't work on the griddle portfolio, but
yeah. And I love that there's the griddle portfolio. I love hearing how legacy companies move things around. But so the question is it considered a Me Too product? And even if it has slightly different attributes, and are Me Too products innovation? And is it important to be first to market, or can the second to market and third to market companies or brands do really well just because of all the power behind the products? So I'll start with you, Jessica.
So certainly with our competition, though, just by nature of who we are, sometimes we lead and sometimes we play within a very similar space. I think that if you're going to enter, you need to ensure that you have your point of difference clear. So while it might feel like a me too, I feel like it's really important to be clear in what you're specifically bringing. And then from there, I feel like, with the Cheez-It, right? I mean, there's certain tenets that we're going to make sure that hold true. Baked, 100% real cheese, right? So it's those types of things that we're always going to want to make sure that whatever we're bringing from a Me Too perspective, at least we're bringing that brand voice and kind of are clear from a consumer perspective that we're delivering on what they expect out of our brands.
Okay, Andrea, how important is first to market, and is it okay to do Me Too products?
I'll start with the last question on. I'm not a fan of Me Too. Me Too is not going to sustain in market. And I've always said, okay, if you're going to be Me Too, why bother? Don't waste time. But there can be a product that is similar to something else in market as long as it offers something that consumers see as better, whether it's packaging, an attribute like protein or whatever it is. So as long as it's doing something better, I think there's room for it. First to market, order to market. I think at one point people realized, oh yeah, first to market, you have to get it. No, I think it is all about being better and in a way consumers recognize and are willing to pay for. If you do something better, the order to market, I don't think matters, because you can one up whoever it is in the market and do something better. You look at a lot of categories on who was first to market and who owns them now, right? So I think of snacking, right, which I think Hormel started the portable snacking, and I think Hillshire now is the leader in that segment, and they were like 4th or 5th in. So I don't think the market entry matters as long as you got something better than your competition.
So you mentioned better, and in that conversation you mentioned packaging. So we haven't talked about packaging, but my experience is sometimes it's not the product that's innovative, it's the delivery vehicle, the delivery system that's innovative. And I know, I tend to offend people on a regular basis. So I will now offend, unfortunately, I'll offend the P&G people, but it will now offend the Kellogg's people. So Pringles. Pringles, again, I remember when Pringles were invented, what was innovative was the packaging. This idea that you could have potato chips that were stackable in a canister that could stand up. No one ever said, wow, these Pringles are the best tasting potato chips I've ever tasted. And I don't think anyone says that today, although someone might. But so where does packaging and delivery system play a role in innovation? And can companies win on the shelf if the only innovative part of the product is packaging? I'll start with you, Andrea.
Sure. I'm a big proponent of just of packaging innovation and not just looking at product when you think about the innovation process. And absolutely, you can win with a packaging innovation. I think the product still needs to taste good, right? We're talking about food. If it doesn't taste good, they're not going to come back. I think one of the great examples, and this gives you to your question earlier, Joel, on market entry position. At Johnsonville, we launched into fully cooked sausage. And Jimmy Dean, tried and true entrenched player, had been out there 25 years, created the segment. We came in, I think, 3rd or 4th to market. And what we did was a packaging innovation. Instead of meat in a box, we put it in a clear package so you could actually see, judge the quality of the meat, and a resealable package. Because believe it or not, you think about consumer usage, consumers aren't eating 12 sausages at a time, right? So taking a package which thinks about their usage behavior, they're only probably using 2 to 3 at a time, very much fit well with consumers and what they were looking for. So that packaging innovation was crucial. And again, the product is still great, but that was crucial to having a point of difference coming into the category later, and really fulfilling consumer needs and how they use the product.
And Jessica, when you look at innovation, specifically on your brands and Cheez-Its, where does packaging play a role from an innovation standpoint, especially knowing that you spend a lot of time focused on away from home?
Yeah, I think packaging can be as big as a normal innovation, really, or a food innovation, if you will, because really in away from home, that's what we work on is food and packaging fit for channel and fit for occasion. And I think if you nail that, then that's kind of a big unlock. If we think about Cheez-It alone, Cheez-It this past year has been on Delta flights. And, you know, we served over 100 million consumers just by being on flight and in the right package to service that need. You know, Andria discussed the resealable package. I mean, that's how we were able to unlock airports and kind of that larger pantry size within C-stores. So I truly believe that packaging is definitely a way in to satisfy a need from both a consumer as well as a customer perspective. Absolutely.
So do you think, just following up on that, should, you know, R&D people tend to go to trade shows like IFT, in ingredient shows. Do you think that brand managers and innovation people should also be attending trade shows such as Pack Expo so that they are being introduced to new packaging concepts from around the world? And in fact, has your experience, either one of you, seen innovation people spending time at the packaging shows?
Yes, absolutely. I know that I have. I spend some time with some of our core packaging suppliers, and it's really about kind of what's on the cusp. What else could we be doing? How could we reimagine, you know, some of our brands in a different pack to solve a different need, right? And so, yes, I'm spending time with packaging developers. I know that we have great packaging resources that are absolutely working in concert with R&D to evolve kind of packaging as well as food to really work together. And so that has been a big change as we are looking to, especially in the world of sustainability, right? And so what might that look like? And so that's definitely something that's on the forefront, actually, of the majority of our innovation.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I don't ignore, we've worked through some of the questions. We've had quite a few questions come in. So Andrea, I want to run one by you. So what's the biggest obstacle, in your opinion, Andrea, that is causing large and small companies to not be able to execute faster? And if you were to recommend, you know, maybe 2 or 3 recommendations to a company, how you can execute faster, what would they be?
I think one of the big factors is risk aversion, right? You don't have, and you know, as an entrepreneur, Joel, that you don't have that level of risk aversion as an entrepreneur that you have in a big company because you've got things that you can lose. You're worried about your career, etc. I also think the bureaucracy and the lack of nimbleness is a big factor as well. I think a couple things that companies can do is, you know, agree on the business case and the area that you're going to play pretty quickly and early on, so that you're playing in the right playground, if you will, and have a little bit of diligence around what you're going to do. I also think you got to skip some steps and lean in and just use some business judgment. You can't test things to nth degree. You can't have a stage gate process, to your earlier question, that isn't flexible and doesn't allow for nimbleness. You know, when a new trend or a new idea comes in, you've got to be able to have an on-ramp to think about new ideas and be flexible as consumer needs evolve. Your process needs to evolve as well.
Great. All right, we've got time for one final question, and Jessica, it's a good one because it's asking for insider information. So the question that was raised is, what % of innovation budgets for companies such as Kellogg's, specifically Kellogg's, is being spent on better for you products? I don't expect you to share that with us, but I will ask this question about Kellogg's. So Kellogg's is more than dipping their toe in quote unquote better for you natural products. They own RX Bar. They made that acquisition a few years ago. They own Kashi. They are in the healthy space. As the company goes forward, do they tend to look at the healthy opportunity and push it off to the healthy companies like Kashi and RX Bar? or will we continue to see healthier products coming from legacy brands within Kellogg's?
No, I don't think that we push the healthy stuff just to the quote unquote healthy brands, because I think that by doing so, and if you push folks to those niche kind of brands, I don't know that everyone's going to follow. So I think it's really important as we think about the role that the brand plays for a consumer to understand if we can stretch our brands to meet that specific need, whether it's a keto, whether it's a low sugar, whether it's a high protein, whatever that is. I think that we need to ensure that it's attainable within some of those core brands, given the number of brands that we have, and how we are connected to our consumer base. We're not blind to the fact that there are a lot of changing demands out there. And certainly we want to be able to find the right brand fit for that kind of consumer demand.
Well, that's great. Well, we're going to end it there. I want to thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Andrea. This was a great conversation. I am going to go out and buy Pop-Tarts chocolate churro and
hey, you'd be missing out. You would be missing out.
And when there is a Pop-Tart Cheez-It offer, you let me know and I'll take care of it. Yes. So thanks everyone for joining us. Alan, I will let you have the final word.
Just thank you all again for joining us. We apologize for not being able to get to all of your questions. We may be able to answer some of those as a follow-up. So thanks for posing them. There is a recording that will be uploaded within about 24 hours on our website in case there's any like, great morsel of information you didn't get to write down. And stay tuned for Thursday when we talk about supply chain.
Sounds good.
Do stay connected to these terrific, again, we have terrific panelists and terrific virtual events on an ongoing basis. We have a very busy June and would love to have you continue to join us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.